I'd like to actually start with just a question about our current system of police accountability. And I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about it, just to give us
Sure.
all some context.
Sure, and I apologize for being in the car. My son has a baseball tournament, so I saw his at bat. I'm here, and I wanted to be part of this as well. So thank you. So yeah, I mean, right now, the police department has an internal affairs bureau. If you go on the city's website, you can see that there is like a citizen's complaint form that could be filled out, but there is not an independent or meaningful police accountability board, because so far the discussion, I think, around that issue has really focused on simply responding to complaints. And I think that over the years, what we've actually heard from the community time and time again is that police accountability is about way more than what to do when something bad happens. It's really about how are we engaged in policing? What does public safety mean to this community?
So could you elaborate on what the history has been in response to these kinds of conditions?
Yeah, so I think, initially, the focus was on diversifying the force. And then, that was seen as a way of building in police accountability and responsiveness and connectedness. Then again, so I think there was this feeling like, oh, okay, well, we're going to hire a Black officer and that will solve everything. And there was no continued discussion about, well, how does policing work in that context? What is the experience of that officer? Is that enough? I mean, I don't believe that's enough, but and then it translated into a discussion about, well, how do we build trust with the community? How do we get officers out in the community, engaged in community policing in a way that helps people feel like they know who the officers are? And I think, again, that also misses the piece that we also want the officers to know who the community is. So again, we've taken these small chunks, and then I think in the wake of the killing of Corey Jackson, there was a large pent up discussion, very public, at City Council over a couple months worth of meetings of accumulated complaints of mistreatment. And the discussion at the time was that, all right, this is the end of that. We're going to figure it out. We're all going to get together, and we are going to do policing right in Geneva, top to bottom. We're going to look at hiring. We're going to look at community engagement. We're going to look at trust building, and we're going to look at complaints. And I guess what I would say is, here we are, and a lot of those pieces are still unfinished. And
So
I think that, yeah.
I think that what's striking there for me, and I imagine other folks will want to chime in as we continue the dialogue, but that we are not talking about something that happened after Corey Jackson. This work precedes that,
Yeah.
and so that's really insightful for many of us. I think that this is so important. I think many of us come into this conversation perhaps assuming that's when this work started, but it actually precedes that by a significant period of time. So that's really helpful. So Jackie, I wonder what you've learned. Like what are the lessons that we can take away from the past 16 years of reform efforts?
Well, I think way back, and again, this is way back for me, which I recognize is still not way back in the total history of this issue in Geneva. So I don't mean to say that I have the full historical context. I'm basically jumping into it in the late 90s and bringing us up from there. But back then, before 2000, the Coalition for Racial Equality, the NAACP, the AAMA were working through election cycles saying, enough talking, enough saying that this can be solved with words. We need action, we need follow through, we need accountability, we need procedures. I think what everybody's looking for is, that level playing field where we know what the rules are, we know what's in bounds, we know what's out of bounds, and we have the confidence that if that line is crossed, that we can all trust that it's going to be handled correctly, above board, and in a way that's transparent and the community can really believe in. And that's why I felt like I wanted to speak again at this moment that we're in, because I really do feel that this just builds, it keeps building and keeps building, and people's needs and requests and demands remain unanswered or partially answered. Or, you know, I don't want to say that it's just been lip service, but in many ways it has just been lip service. It has just been, okay, we'll talk about it, and talking about it will heal it. And the thing is, talking's important, but the healing has to be an active healing. There actually has to be something that emerges that we do differently than we did before.